human sacrifice. Now in this picture, obviously it's not a human that's being sacrificed here. This is a panthera, an animal that lives in Central America, very much like a leopard. Okay, now we have seen this picture before, but today I want you to get a bit more detail out of it. Okay, so I want you to challenge yourself to find at least 5 different things that you can comment about that are in this picture. I'll put some numbers here to help you. Okay, but you might find more than 5. So you're going to give yourself 3 minutes on a piece of paper, just in note form, to write down as many things as you can see in this picture. Pause the video for 3 minutes and then come back. Okay, so you've got some notes now of at least 5 different things that you've seen in this picture. So, number 1, obviously, it's a sacrifice. The animal's going to be killed, or it may already have been killed, but it's not just any old animal, it's a really important animal. Obviously, the big cats in any jungle are the senior predators, the top predator, and so they've chosen a very special animal to be sacrificed. Number 2, here, this is it looks a bit like you would find an altar in a church, and this is actually an execution block that they are using, and on it, I hope you notice these are glyphs like the symbols they use, which we saw in their books, the codex books, and we've seen them on other wall carvings, like in Pakal's tomb, for example. So, and you can see these are, again, you've got people here wearing headdresses, which we've discussed before. So that's number 2. Number 3, this person, he is a very important priest. And so it's not just any old person, and here he is. This is some sort of special ceremonial instrument that he's cutting the panthera with, and here is another thing you might have noticed. This looks like some blood that's coming out. Okay, number 4. This is some smoke coming. So what do you think they would do that for? Well, this is probably, in Europe, we would call this incense. It's probably some special stuff that burns and gives off a certain smoke that they would have always at this ceremony. Number 5, here we've got this person's wearing a special headdress, so they are an important priest as well. And we've discussed before how they often show the importance of people with their headdresses that they wear. You might have also seen this down here. You might have noticed that, and you might have noticed this as well. This sort of trapdoor. Okay, and there may be other things that you've noticed too. Okay, well done. Feel free to send me any messages of things that you've noticed. What's this, for example, that this man is holding? Okay, so lots of things to see in this picture. Sacrifices. Let's talk a bit more about sacrifices. A sacrifice is when you kill something or someone for a certain reason. And the Maya had complicated rituals involving prayer, singing, dancing, and sacrifices. These sacrifices involved letting blood. That was part of it. So like we saw in the picture, letting the blood out was important. This was held at a certain time, often a special occasion, like to honour the rise of a ruler, or for a major victory in battle, or the birth of an heir to the throne. In the picture you saw an animal being sacrificed, because I don't want to be showing you pictures of humans being sacrificed, so I think that would be a bit over the top, but they did also do that. Okay, so you just need to know that. They also cut humans to release their blood, and sometimes slaves were sacrificed as well. So, were the Mayans really that bloodthirsty? Let's have a look at some evidence. Okay, so here's a painting from the wall of a special building in Mayan that was discovered by archaeologists, and this is a battle scene. And here they're carrying their special spears. Okay, and they also, you can see some very important warriors with their headdresses. This person seems to have been, they've been thrown up in the air, I think, during this battle. Okay, so that's an example of a battle scene. Obviously, that's quite a violent scene. Here is a small statue of a warrior. They've got a shield. Again, the headdress, probably in this arm, must have fallen off now and maybe been lost, but that was probably where they were holding a sword or a spear. And in this one, these are some captured prisoners, and they are going to be sacrificed. How can you tell they're prisoners? I expect you noticed up here you've got these ropes that are binding them. They're tied up, so they are going to be killed and sacrificed, and their blood is going to be let out deliberately. Here's another example. This is called a cenote, and it's a type of well that was, and sometimes humans were sacrificed in a well like this. This is from the Mayan area. Archaeologists have found human remains in this well, and the wounds that they had on their body is consistent with a human sacrifice. Right, so surely this proves they weren't very civilized. They were very bloodthirsty, and they enjoyed killing people. What do you think? Well, today we're looking at a contrast. We're debating, really, whether they were very civilized or very bloodthirsty. Okay, so let's just talk about briefly what those words actually mean. So, civilized. When we say that civilization is more advanced, the social and cultural development, we call them a civilized society. An example would be, we've discussed before, the amazing buildings that the Mayans constructed, temples made in a pyramid shape, some of them having exactly 365 steps, some of them with observatories to look at the stars, etc. Or the books that they wrote. A civilized society often has books and writing systems, and you would contrast that with the type of society where they don't, and they just have violence and bloodshed. Okay, so that's what civilized means. Bloodthirsty, having a desire to kill and maim or injure people. Now we're going to have a go at a spectrum activity. Okay, we've done similar things to this in class before. Here are 12 statements. Okay, 6 on this page and 6 on the next one. And you've got these available on the website as well as a separate document. And if your printer's working, you're going to print them out and cut them up and do an activity with them. But you're not going to worry if your printer's not working. You're just going to read them. All right, and then you're going to show me what you think about each one by putting the numbers for each one in the right place. All right, so here they are. 12 statements. They sacrificed animals to the gods. They were highly skilled and were able to make beautiful sculptures and amazing temples on top of pyramids, all without animal power or metal tools. You're going to read these ones as well. And you're going to read these ones. And there's 12 in total. And then you're going to decide where they go. So you're going to cut them up. And you're going to just draw out on a piece of paper something like this with a title and a line, and on the left you're going to write civilized, and on the right bloodthirsty. Then you're going to take all 12 and put them somewhere on this line. Now I don't want you to put the whole lot, some of them down here and some right down here, because some of them should really, when you've thought about it, they might go in the middle. Okay, they might go a little bit this end or a little bit that end. That's an important part of this task. Let's do an example. So here's statement number 2. They were highly skilled. They made beautiful sculptures and amazing temples. Where does this go? Well, do you think this is about them being bloodthirsty and killing people? And not really, no. So this needs to go on this side, on the civilized side. So that's where I've put it over here. And you're going to do this with yours. So you'll have 12 of these. You'll put them over all at various places and make sure I can still see the words civilized and bloodthirsty. Then when you've finished your sheet, you take a picture of it. And that's what you're going to send me. This is task number 1. Now, don't worry if your printer's not working and you can't print these out. All you do then is you read them, okay, and then you just write the right number in the right place. So if you want source 2 to be there, then you just write that number. And then if your line has the different numbers, make sure you separate them out with a comma so I don't get mixed up. And then I'll know where you think they should go, okay? And I can still check what you've done. So you're going to be thinking, this is task number 1, thinking about these 12 statements and then putting them in the right place on the spectrum. Does each of these show you that they were civilized or bloodthirsty? Okay. Now, while we're on here, we can look at this one in a bit more detail. And I just wanted to give you a little health warning about this type of source. In the 16th century, a Spanish bishop described the throwing of sacrificial victims into the water, along with gold objects and the heads of gods or animals. So this is when the Spanish turned up, the conquistadores, the people who conquered Mexico, conquered the Aztecs, conquered Central America, and they didn't like the Maya. They thought they were very old-fashioned and terrible, and they wanted them all to be Christian. Okay, so the things that they've written about the Maya might be a little bit biased, might be a bit unfair. And of course, they're always saying how terrible the Maya are, but it's worth remembering that back in Spain in the 16th century, and also in Britain, people were still being burned to death, okay, for having the wrong Christian views. If they were a Catholic in a Protestant country, or a Protestant in a Catholic country, they could be burned to death. So let's not think that everybody in Europe was perfect at this time. Right, so there's task number one, and that will help you get your ideas in order to lead up towards task number two. We've just done that. Right, why did they practice human sacrifice? Well, the reason for sacrifice was that the Mayans believed the only way that the sun would rise every day was for them to sacrifice someone or something every day to the gods. It didn't always have to be a human, but every day they would sacrifice someone or something. And the blood would feed the gods, and the gods would then carry on with their jobs, like making sure the sun rose and making sure it rains enough to grow the crops, and have all the different things that we've talked about before to grow. The prisoners that they sacrificed were mainly people who had attacked them, who had come from other places. This is their beliefs about the afterlife, which is, some of them are similar to the ancient Egyptians. As with the ancient Egyptians living over 1,000 years before, the Maya believed that everyone went to the underworld to await rebirth, to come back to life. Dead people were buried with the objects that would help them in their journey to the next life, like we saw last week with Pakal's tomb. When archaeologists opened these large pyramids, just note a spelling mistake there, sorry about that, opened these large pyramids, they found that they were actually tombs of the nobles. Inside they found bodies carefully prepared for the afterlife, the nobles having riches, jewelry and other symbols of their power buried with them. Right, so now we've got a little bit more background about why they did sacrifices. It's going to help you decide about whether they were really bloodthirsty and they just enjoyed killing people for the sake of it, or whether there was some, obviously we would hate it now if it happened, but whether there were some reasons that they had to do with their religion. So here's task two. Now these people, they're having a debate, which we've discussed before. Debate is really important in history, and we need to be able to learn to give both sides of the argument so that we can understand the point of view that you might have and somebody else's point of view as well. So on a piece of paper, you don't have to draw pictures of anybody like this, but I've just done this to help you out. On a piece of paper, you're going to draw a line down the middle. On the left, you're going to put a heading, the Mayans were civilized, and on the right, the Mayans were bloodthirsty. So he thinks they were civilized, and she thinks they were bloodthirsty, and they're going to have a debate and put forward some arguments. Okay, so here they are. Now, you're going to draw these out, speech bubbles, 3 each. Okay, and in each one is going to be a different argument. Okay, so there'll be roughly a paragraph in each one, and each one's going to be, all of these need to be arguments in favor of the idea that the Mayans were civilized. And on this side, no, they weren't. They were bloodthirsty. So I've done a waggle, the first one, which you can copy or borrow if you want to, borrow ideas from. So this is the first argument from this person who's saying that they were civilized. Yes, it's true they did sacrifice people, but they didn't just kill them for the sake of it. They believed they were giving the gods blood to ensure the crops would grow. Secondly, they only sacrificed prisoners, usually people who had attacked them. Thirdly, not even all prisoners were sacrificed. Some were treated well. So that's the type of thing that you could write in your speech bubble. Okay? So you're going to use the 12 statements to help you. And this will help you decide what are the most important statements. If you think you've got some ideas of your own to put into either side, that's great. Things that you may have found out from your own research, brilliant. Put them in as well. So you're putting forward 3 arguments on this side, so that it's going to be a paragraph for each one, and 3 on that side. Okay, then you take a photograph of what you've written and send that to me as well. So this is task 2, and task 1 is the spectrum where you put all the different cards in the right place. Okay, well done. Look forward to seeing you soon. All the best.